Next up, we've got Ismael Bonfim taking on Vinc from Hell Pichel. And guys, this is why I do the previous performance and odds range document every week, because you learn these little things that are surprising. Every week I find myself a little bit surprised by something that I come across in my research. So, for example, let's talk about the previous performance and odds range for Bonfim and Vinc Pichel in the UFC. I think people are going to be really surprised here. So Ismael Bonfim is 0-1 as a favorite for a minus 100% ROI. He was minus 300 against Benoit Saint Denis. If y'all listened to the show at the time, I was big on Benoit Saint Denis. I thought that the plus 250 by his name simply made no sense heading into that matchup. Vinc Pichel, on the other hand, guys, 4-1 as a UFC underdog, 118.6% ROI here. He is a massive underdog in this spot. So in terms of the matchup, I think this is a really tough fight on paper for Vinc Pichel. Why? He's starting to age out, in my opinion, of this lightweight division. He's 40 years of age. He's going to be 41 years of age very soon. If you guys have listened to his recent interviews, he's talked about the fact he dealt with injuries. He was kind of criticizing Tony Ferguson, maybe not being as sensitive to his injuries in training as he needed to be, right? And my coach always talks about it's not about who's best. It's about who's left. When it comes to these combat sports, you got to be healthy in order to train, in order to compete. And I think that a guy like Vinc Pichel, his health is declining. I talk about an angle long-term frequently on the show, which is a younger fighter with more professional experience. Now, if it's at an underdog price, then I want to fire, right? Obviously, Ismael Bonfim is heavily favored here, but that makes sense to me based on my metrics. You look at the fact that it's a 13-year age gap. That's very highly predictive for a Bonfim win. On top of that, these guys have a very similar size dynamic. When you look at the Benoit Saint Denis fight, why did I think Benoit Saint Denis was going to win that fight? There's a number of reasons. When you look, I think that number one, you see an Ismael Bonfim that his ego got in the way of a better performance against Benoit Saint Denis. I picked Benoit, but I still didn't think it was going to be that wide of a result. He got kicked in the body, and his ego said, give me another one. He wanted to call him on, say, hey, that didn't hurt me. But he didn't actually have an answer. So when Benoit Saint Denis said, okay, and just returned, strike, 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 he just got overwhelmed. And I think he was badly hurt and compromised before the fight ever went to the ground. When you look at Bonfim's record, the reason that I thought there was value on him against Terrence McKinney was he was a plus money underdog. I thought that he was going to be difficult for McKinney to outgrapple. And I thought on the feet, he was going to be the superior fighter. He was clearly the superior fighter, I thought, between him and McKinney in that fight. One of the rare fights where McKinney didn't actually get off on a lot of offense and beat him up. I think that was McKinney, in part, not having the confidence to go pull the trigger. But I also think that Bonfim really approached that fight smart. He waited, gassed him out into the second round, and then got the finish. I called Bonfim KO2 in that spot. I was very happy with the result. I bet on Bonfim there. So Bonfim is a guy that I have been having good betting results, since the Contender Series. I think I bet quarter unit on his opponent via sub on the Contender Series. Did not cash that bet, but he had 3 submission losses. They're all justifiable, right? He lost to Adriano Moraes, very good fighter from one. He lost to Renato Moicano, and that was his most recent submission loss, all the way back in 2014. So this guy, Bonfim, it looks like he's got these liabilities on the ground because he just got submitted in his last fight. But even then, did he look like a bad grappler, or did he look like a guy who got rocked really badly and then just got finished on the mat? So for me, I think Vinc Pichel is probably going to lose here, unfortunately. I could understand why people will get to the number. Like I said, the data backs it up from a historical odds performance. Vinc Pichel has just not been expected to win many UFC fights, and he's continued to do so. However, I think that a lot of his wins as a dog came earlier on in his UFC run. So for whatever that's worth, he hasn't been supremely active. And I do think that unless he's getting takedowns in this spot, he's probably going to wear a lot of damage. So couple things to worry about on that side, but I'm going to take Bonfim here very reluctantly. No chance you'll ever catch me laying minus 450 with this of the Bonfim brothers. I do think that Gabriel is the premier Bonfim brother of the two, but we will have to wait and see. Question from our guy Dixon. He says, Liam, do you expect Bonfim to start wrestling and grappling exchanges at all? No, I don't think so. I think he's probably going to strike. I think he prefers to strike for sure. So I think it's probably going to look a little bit like that Contender Series fight. I think if somebody's mixing in the wrestling and the grappling attempts, it's more likely to be Vinc Pichel. But we've also seen Vinc Pichel taken down a number of times. So it could go either way in that regard. But I think that Vinc Pichel is going to be looking for takedowns. That's my honest